start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Vice Chair, if I may, before we get started, we do have just one piece of housekeeping business, if I could get you to do it.
Thank you.
We have a land purchase installment contract that that has been signed by one of the folks that we did a tax foreclosure, automatic foreclosure on their property. And they've agreed to the contents of the contract. I would like to have a motion and a second for the board to approve the signing of the contract, and then have you folks sign it if you will.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this contract? Is everybody familiar with, read it, and everything's okay?
Just a minute, I had a question.
Okay.
Oh, here it is, right here. On page 2, number 9, it said if the vendor defaults on any mortgage on the property, the vendor is us. So we're making the mortgage payments on that?
No, we're not.
Oh,
It's just boilerplate language within the contract.
okay. But if in some other case, it could be.
It could be, but if it was, I'd explain that to you, and it isn't in this one.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Strictly for the taxes on it?
Right, the automatic foreclosure that we've gone through the process. We have this gentleman who's agreed to resecure his property by doing this installment contract with us. And then we will honor this contract as he continues to pay his payments monthly until he's paid up, and then we will return the property to him with a quitclaim deed, and then we'll close this out.
Anybody have any other questions, comments?
Yeah, during this process, what happens to the taxes on that property? Is it still assessed and tax assessed,
Yes,
even though we own it?
yes. We'll continue carrying the property as he would technically be the owner until such time that he regains ownership.
Any other comments, questions? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed?
Thank you. I have Melissa here this evening to, on page 3 of this document is where you sign. I'll witness your signatures, and then she can certify it.
And while that's taking place, I would just like to say that this is being broadcasted live, so just so you're aware,
Under the vendor, yes.
And nobody has to babysit the camera? Derek was here a little while ago.
I believe he's still here.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So everybody's all set with the Public Works Department budget that has been proposed. Do we have any other information that needs to be presented to us?
If I may, Mr. Vice Chairman, I just want to take a quick minute to update you all on the projects that DOT has on the books for us for the next couple of years. And I just,
Thanks, John.
I copied a couple pages, and there are other towns at the beginning of Berwick and after Berwick, but
Thanks, Joe.
just to call your attention to the Berwick projects. And I'm sure you're all aware that they're gonna happen, but the first one is the Rochester Street project, which we do have a match that we raised half of last year and intend to raise half this year to rebuild a portion of Rochester Street. The second is what's called a mill and fill, which will mill off some of the surface of Route 236 from just the other side of Powerhouse Road, all the way back to town. So in other words, the wide area of 236. That will be resurfaced. Route 9, same thing, from the bridge right out through to the, basically out of town, out to the edge of the urban compact zone, 0.55 miles. And then the bridge, the bridge between Berwick and Somersworth, will at a minimum be redecked and perhaps completely rebuilt. There'll be a meeting on that right in this room in a couple of weeks.
That milling and resurfacing on Route 9, will they be doing the driveway skirts
Yes.
with all those here?
Yeah. So if you add all these projects up, it's about $3.5 million worth of work that, DOT plans to do in Berwick. This is the 12-13 work plan. That doesn't necessarily mean it'll all be done in 12-13, but it won't lag far beyond that. So in an era of very tight budgets at the local level and at the state level, and all levels of government, Berwick's doing pretty well here to get this, so.
Is
The
what
only-
we raised for a match covering all of these?
Covering only the one project. We actually aren't required to match the others.
Oh, good.
Yep, there'll be 100%
Oh,
DOT
that's good.
project.
Another one's over $1 million.
That's a
the
bridge. That's a bridge, that's part of it, New
Yeah.
Hampshire.
So financially, that's, the Rochester Street one is the only one that's, we did the first half last year, and the second half will be on this year's warrant.
Correct.
No, you don't have to,
Does it have to go on, yeah, it does have to go on.
I thought you said that
No, it's been approved.
it's already been approved, so
last
why would
year's
you put it
warrant.
on a warrant?
Well, I haven't really looked at that, whether or not we're legally binding to put it back on or not. I know that the language indicated that we're going to vote to raise and appropriate $140,000 with $70,000 in the last budget cycle. So let me look at that again. If it's not necessary, then obviously we won't put it on.
Well, if you put it on the warrant, people voted it down, what would you do?
Well,
You
have a,
can't.
you have a
They
very
can
good
vote it
point.
down. It's been approved. I'll
I-
guarantee that.
Yeah, well, that's the way I feel too, but what
Yeah.
I'm saying, if you put it back on the warrant and
He's
you vote
wrong.
it down, you're gonna create a quagmire
Been
there.
wrong before. No, I'm quite sure that we passed it as 140,000. It passed muster at the town meeting, of which 70,000 was appropriated last year, and we've got to put in 70,000
Yeah,
this
I
year.
understand that.
But that
So
doesn't have to go
therefore,
on the warrant.
you don't have to put it on a warrant.
No.
If you do, you could be in big trouble if people voted it
Well,
down.
I would suggest that we,
I'll just reconfirm it on the language. I think what Selectman Crichton is saying is accurate.
You hated to say that.
Yeah, I
didn't you?
did. But no, I didn't. But I will double check it just to make sure that we're crossing our Ts and dotting all our Is.
okay.
Any questions on those, Joe, or anyone have any?
Does anybody have any questions on those
No.
works that are gonna be taking place? There'll be notifications made and the appropriate information.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. you want me to cover the local roads that are projected for the next couple of years to be worked on with local funds?
That'd be a good idea.
Last year, the primary project was Old Sanford Road. We still have a small gravel piece of Diamond Hill Road to construct as needed and pave with last year's funds.
Is that the end to Little River?
That's correct, yeah, from the bridge back out. Yep. Next year, obviously, when spring comes, we need to kind of check the roads and really finalize the plan. But there's still about 6,500 feet of Little River Road that's left to be resurfaced. And what we've been doing, we've kind of pushed that a couple of years, is we're just keeping a close eye on it. Like with all the roads, where it's gonna be a shim and an overlay, we don't wanna let them go too far. But on the other hand, we don't need to jump the gun either, so we try to hit that sweet spot for resurfacing. Next year, the primary emphasis is planned to be on Diamond Hill Road. And that should be a combination of treatments such as the same as that was done on Old Sanford. There'll be shim and overlay primarily on the west side, if you will, the river side, because that's in better shape than once you crest the hill and head back towards Old Sanford. There'll be portions that will need some more extensive treatment.
John, on Diamond Hill, has test borings been done there to determine the quality of the material?
No, we gotta do that still.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Because
planned
that
to do.
should certainly govern the expense of doing that road.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely will. My sense is that there's gonna be some pretty decent gravel there to start with. But we need to get out and do the borings.
Well, I disagree with you, and the reason, and I don't mean to be sarcastic at all, although it can be. Basically, that road heaves a lot. Generally, that's an indicator of clay being underlying.
Are you talking
that.
about the paved portions?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I had dropped back in my mind to the gravel portion with my statement. So we're not disagreeing, I think we might be agreeing.
Oh, well, that sounds better.
It's a good thing, isn't it?
Well, on occasion. No, that was the thing I was concerned about.
I think from, portions of that were sand and gravel pits. So out on the riverside, that underneath there it probably drains pretty well.
Yeah.
There's probably some pretty decent material. But it certainly does seem to change as you get out towards the old
Yeah.
Sanford end.
So you won't be doing any work on Diamond Hill Road from Old Sanford Road up?
What I'd like to do, Eleanor, is do all of it.
Oh, okay.
As funding allows, but again, it's gonna depend on, Old Sanford Road would have been nice if we could have reclaimed the whole stretch. But what we try to do is the right treatments to get as much done as we can with the funds that we have. Plan to basically do the same thing with Diamond Hill Road. Pick and choose.
Have you looked at Cranberry Meadow Road? From like the top of the hill, Clements, down to,
Oh, yeah, in the spring of the year, that's bad.
That stretch is very bad.
I mean, it just,
Yeah, there's a stretch of Wentworth Road on the Route 9 end that's probably equally as bad, maybe worse. The nice thing about those is they're not terribly long stretches.
tell that to
The downside is they need some pretty extensive work.
yeah, I don't think Diamond Hill had much work since it was a dirt road, for that matter. And I remember when it was,
It's due.
So, John, on the Sanford Road end, what kind of work is entailed on that paved portion going up the hill? Are you looking to reclaim, redo ditching? What's the work plan?
Reclaim, redo ditching, add gravel where we can, and where necessary. Selectman Crichton's right that, the borings will help and tell a lot.
So how does this affect the budget process as far as,
Well, if I may, it affects it in two locations. We'll have a road construction request of $250,000, as we did last year, requesting that money come from the fund balance, as we have in the past. And in addition to that, there'll also be the Urban Rural Initiative Program funds for $66,000. That will give us $316,000 of funding to go back into our CIP and to continue our work.
So basically, the Diamond Hill Road and little parts of Little River Road and stuff like that are your primary concerns right now. Do you think that there'll be anything left over to hit like Cranberry Meadow Road or anything like that?
I don't know the answer to that until we really get out there and do a more detailed budgeting of Diamond Hill Road.
That
John?
section of Cranberry Meadow Road from the Four Corners up to about Wayne Clement's driveway was terrible, but your patch job was pretty good. At least it was traversable after that.
Yeah. One thing about roads that you know basically have to be rebuilt, or stretches that have to be rebuilt, is you don't lose anything by waiting. I mean, you lose in that people have to drive over rough roads, but in terms of, it's gotta be rebuilt, so it's not like
You gotta dig it out and start over.
Right.
Yeah.
That already has to happen, so it's not like if we wait another year, it's gonna cost a lot more. It's gonna cost just inflation more. As opposed to a road that needs, maybe right now you could get by with a resurface, and then you let it go to the point it needs a more extensive treatment, then you have lost.
You had something on?
John, how much of this work can you do within-house with your crew?
Well, we can, I think what we do on some of those stretches is we may, bring in a contractor to grind them up. Then we may ourselves re-gravel the roads and that sort of thing, and then bring a contractor back to fine grade and pave.
Yeah, okay. But
The drainage, we usually do ourselves. I mean, we may bring in an excavator, but we're basically doing it ourselves. An excavator with an operator. So the ditching and the drainage and all that sort of thing. Very similar to how we put together Blackberry Hill Road 2 years ago. We brought in a excavator and operator, Morals, and we just work right with them.
yeah,
And get all the ditching.
but you will use new gravel on these roads,
Where needed, absolutely, right.
yeah.
Right.
You won't be using anything out of the town shed up here.
No, there's very little there. I mean, we've got small stockpiles there.
But most of that's got salt in it, hasn't it? I know,
Oh,
I've
the
heard some,
sand, you
I've
mean,
heard
yeah.
some complaints that some of that stuff with salt's been used in roads. And that's why I'm saying you use new gravel, you won't be.
We can't, yeah, right, that's
Okay.
correct, it has to be. Yeah.
Does the town still have access to gravel that the town negotiated some years ago?
Yes.
Is there any volume there at all?
Oh, yeah, there is. It's probably, I haven't looked at it in a while, maybe 1,000 yards?
Is that Louis Furnace's?
Yes.
Does that need to be does that need to be, ground or?
It's been
Yeah,
crushed.
it's been
3
processed.
inch, it's 3 inch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we contracted with that a long time ago.
Right, and we still have a stockpile there of material that we can utilize. I think we used it quite a bit when we were out that way doing some work, so the trucking costs were a little bit less.
I think we used that when they did Long Swamp Road.
That could very well be, too.
'Cause that, that was a major job.
Then, following years, what comes up in the plan, again, to be reevaluated, Worcester Road is gonna come, and then, believe it or not, Pine Hill is gonna come back, Sullivan to the water tank. You can start to see the wheel ruts coming back into that. The following year, Blackberry Hill Road still needs to be finished up, which would be the stretch, by the
John,
school.
did you ever see the plan, the 10-year plan that was done? Because probably that 10 years up now.
Yeah, when I first got here, Keith gave that to me.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then we've kind of
Yeah,
updated
I said,
it.
I'm sure the 10 years up now.
Right, it is.
Yeah. But there was, and I'm not sure we ever got it all done.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think we did.
But I remember I was on the board when we did that plan.
Yeah, and that was a good plan.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of keeping them
Keeping at it,
updated and keeping
yeah.
at it. Yeah. Berwick's roads really,
Do
I
you
mean,
think we
there's
should,
a problem
you
with
think
them.
we should develop another 10-year plan?
Well, I've got kind of a rough 8-year. It's just a single page.
Yeah.
But right here, which,
But that's about the same thing, it's a plan that needs,
exactly, right. And it's reevaluated every year as it needs to be, each spring, and based on funding it. Berwick has about 52, a little over 52 miles of paved road, 4 miles of gravel road.
we got 4 miles of gravel road left?
4 miles of gravel, which would be mostly Riddland Road and Love Brook Road.
Oh, that's right too, yeah, that's right too.
You don't have to hot top it for me ever. As soon as you
Right now, there aren't
rebuild a
any plans
road,
to,
no, as soon as you rebuild a road, it becomes a speedway. That's what happened up on Long Swamp.
I think one of the
just don't
things,
see them go slow.
I think one of the things that we have to be mindful of, and I think John does an excellent job of identifying the roads that really need the shim and overlay, and be able to get the biggest bang for our buck. If you recall, several years back, we anticipated that we would need somewhere around $450,000 a year to stay really up on our roads as we would prefer to be. However, we understand the realities, the economic realities that we're up against. So we identify those roads that really we can get the largest volume done. And then the roads, like you talked about, the Blackberry Hill, the end of Cranberry Meadow Road, and those types is where we need a full-fledged redesign and reconstruction of that road. We sort of pick those when we can afford to do them, so.
Do you sort of avoid, like Cranberry Meadow Road where that brook runs through there? I mean, does that cause any unique issues why we're avoiding it? I mean, that road's bad.
No, yeah, it is bad, and it's not that I'm trying to avoid it, it's just we really haven't kind of had the funds to get to it. But you're correct when you say that the environmental issues have to be considered, but honestly, they have to be considered almost everywhere now.
I'll say every road.
Yeah,
If you sealed some of those cracks, would that help? I remember one year we did, the state came up and spoke to us and said that if you get cracks, if you seal them so the water doesn't get in, you probably can get another 5 years out of that road. And if you notice, going to Dover, there's more sealing down there than there is pavement right now in places.
I guess,
Yeah.
okay.
In theory, if you can keep the water out of the road, it's a huge help. So if you could seal the cracks and it worked, it would be a huge help.
We looked
I've
at a
had-
couple, so I'm sorry.
I've just had so many fail on me over the years. Go out and do a good job sealing the cracks, and 2 years later, the cracks are back open, that I lost confidence in the process of crack sealing. Now, I'm beginning to have people in the industry talk to me and say, there's a lot more better methods now that you need to be looking at that really do last longer. So
No, I
maybe
was-
we need to give it another, it's very inexpensive.
Yeah, I was trying to
It's-
think
yeah.
what road we did do the sealing of the cracks on, and it doesn't come to my mind. I'll have to get. I'll have
Another
to
thing that we
get it out of
attempted to
that
do
computer somehow.
several years back was not only looking at sealing, but also looking at chip sealing. And looking at vendors who would do that. And if you recall,
Now, what's chip sealing?
chip sealing used to be a process where a vendor would come in and they'd lay down liquid petroleum products on the road, and then they would come along with a small gravel type of system over it, and then you would roll it and sort of seal it all together. It would give you a little more abrasion, but we tried, and we just can't find a company locally who's willing to go back into that business yet.
Well, when we did Blackberry Hill once years ago, we had them come in and chip it up, with a grinder out of Newmarket, Bell
Bell and
Bill and
Flynn?
Flynn?
and
Oh,
Flynn.
and
That's
Flynn,
the-
yeah.
And they came in and they did Blackberry, because that was while back. But I think that was when that was first, well, it was because Norbert Kuchar was town manager, because I went with him over to Newmarket to check on a road that they had done. And we did Rockbury Hill, and it worked out pretty good at that time, because that was many years ago.
We've used that application in several roads here in town.
In fact, John Flynn came by last week and talked to us. I don't know if you ever met with him. He's an older gentleman now, nice,
Well, yeah, well, he
nice
he
guy.
wasn't 40 years ago.
And he'd love to get back, and we're probably gonna ask him to come back, and they're a nice company. They'll come out and they'll bore, we take our jackhammer, open the roads, they'll bore, they'll take the samples, they'll bring them to the lab and test them. They do a lot of extra that they don't charge.
Well, I know we were very pleased with their work that year, and yes, now that you mentioned the man, in my mind, I'm sure he doesn't look like that then, but I remember him back then, I did meet him.
That's one of the,
A while back.
my typical sore spots is straight salt still the answer?
Yep, it's a good question, and, yes, I believe it is, and here's why. What happens is when an application of salt goes out, if it's properly done, sometimes we mess up. I'll just say that right
I'm
up front.
glad you said that.
Sometimes we mess up.
Blackberry Hill Road?
Sometimes we mess
That's
up.
the street.
Sometimes it goes down too little, sometimes something gets left open and it goes down way too much. But when it's properly done, which is most of the time, it's putting down about 600 pounds a mile per application.
But environmentally, what is all that salt runoff doing?
I don't know the answer to that. 2 years ago, I went to a seminar up in Augusta where that was the main topic, and all the experts were there. And after leaving, I didn't know any more than when I went, because there hasn't been enough data collected to know.
And I've talked with you before about this, and simple mathematics, if you mix in 50 and 50, you're gonna use less. I mean, I see the line item on the budget, $112,000 salt. And
What do
then
you want to mix it with?
well, they got the,
That stone dust?
stone dust, you got stone dust, which is very cheap.
Yeah, that's what I've been told.
And the other thing is that when it reaches below, 20 degrees, salt doesn't work anyway, but if you still have that stone dust there, you're creating an aggregate in the road so that it gives you some traction. I mean, I don't know, it just seems like since, I've talked with, Barry Stevens up to North Berwick Auto, and I've talked with several people, and he says these vehicles that are not that old are looking twice as old as they were before. The salt is just beating everything up, and, you look at the roads, and if you don't seal them out, now that salt gets in there, and it doesn't allow that frost base to get into the road, and, you just said that, it's a good idea to keep the moisture out of the road. We're not allowing it to freeze under the road. We just keep putting the salt to it, so.
Well,
I'm not
I
convinced
sometimes
yet.
think they, they go down and they're salting, and then 3 minutes later, they're down plowing. Well, to me, they're salting and plowing salt. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my
Right, well, let me just.
humble opinion.
I hear you. Let me just drop back.
I don't wanna get into any, personnel issues as far as Keith is responsible for
I-
your actions, and I think we all understand that, but we are in town and we see this
But we
stuff.
have a right to ask questions.
That's
Oh, right.
absolutely right.
Let me
This
just.
is all-
That's what this is about.
Yeah, this
Right.
is about
Yep.
your salt. Right now, since '07, since I've been here, we've had a salt priority program. And it's been in effect since that point. And
Before that, we had liquid.
Well,
We did
we,
that
we
liquid thing,
tried,
just
we
like
tried
the-
a liquid calcium program, and we had some small, but it wasn't very successful based on
Well,
what,
as I
what
remember.
we all had to do.
As I remember, the foreman wasn't happy with using that, because when we put that into effect, we had, the turnpike used it. I don't know if they still do it.
They
or not.
do.
They don't.
They don't?
Yeah, they do.
New Hampshire doesn't use it at all.
Maine
I'm
still
talking about
uses a
Maine.
calcium
Maine,
product.
I know Maine Turnpike used to use that. And the guy from the state came up and explained the whole thing to us, environmentally, everything. And we bought it. Jim McMahon was town manager at the time. And we had to buy some equipment to do it with. And then all of a sudden, I was told, we don't like that anymore, so we're not gonna do it. And I just thought, well, what, you know, when you ask the question why, you don't get any answer.
Well, let me explain what we were doing. I think that was the misconception. We didn't buy spray rigs or anything like that. What we were doing is we were spraying our loads. And the material would go
We
on
didn't
the,
buy one spray rig to go on back of a truck?
not mine, not since I've been here, unless we still
Well,
have
no, it wasn't
one.
when you were here.
No.
No, it wasn't, but before that, I thought
I've
that-
never seen a spray rig. We did buy the tank, and we were gonna use, alternate product to use, but what its primary purpose was to spray the salt as it was being delivered, and then as it was loaded into the trucks, this material would assist in disbursement, so it would stay on the road, as well as allow the salt to be activated at a lower temperature. And that was the only purpose that it was providing to us.
Well, as I understood it, that if there was a storm coming, they would go out about an hour ahead and lay this liquid on the road, and that,
That used to be, yeah, if you had the spray rig and you had the
Yeah.
truck that was equipped for that, you could do that.
well, the discussion, as I remember it, that we thought, yeah, we would buy the spray rig. Maybe they didn't, because I think that's probably the year that I left the board.
Okay.
But I know the discussion was, and I just kind of assuming that the next board bought the spray rig. They probably didn't.
No, as far as I know, there
Well,
was
I'm
no
sure if
spray
they
rig
did, it would
purchased.
be there.
Go ahead.
Just get my train of thought back here, just bear, okay.
That's old age.
Yeah, let me just back up. There's two basic philosophies with winter maintenance. The first is to let the roads basically have packed snow or ice on them, do what you need to do for traction to keep them going, and as they melt off, which they eventually do on their own, go out and scrape them. That's really what was done for many, many years on all our roads. Then the newer school of thought got to be, as, you know, we had more and more traffic and people went faster and that sort of thing, was that the better way is to melt the roads off quickly, push the slush off as quick as you can, you know, within a day or two, and get people back to bare pavement. That's when all of us started using more and more salt. Initially, we just mixed more and more with the sand, because we were using sand, that's how we did it. But people were saying they wanted the roads melted off, and we knew the only way to get them melted off was to use salt, so we kept mixing it with the sand. And I remember the time 15 years ago, when I stood in South Berwick and talked to the foreman and said, you know, the sand, I don't know why we're using the sand anymore, because we're melting the roads bare, and then the sand's just sitting there on bare roads.
Blowing on everybody's windows.
So we said, we might as well, it wasn't that we changed the salt, we were already using the salt, it's just we took the sand out of it. And what we found was that, you know, we used to put it took about a yard of sand mixed with salt to do a mile. So if you have a 6-yard truck, you can do about 6 miles. If you have a 14-mile route, you gotta keep going back and filling up. What we found out was when we use salt, guys could do the whole route, you know, so they're going out, they're getting the route done more efficiently, and then we didn't have to pick the sand up. In the spring, we didn't have to spend a lot of time picking the sand up, and we didn't have to spend a lot of time in the fall putting it up, you know, building the pile, mixing salt with it and everything. And so over all those years of doing it, I mean, I really became convinced of the savings that were there if the goal is to achieve bare roads. If the goal isn't to achieve bare roads, then you don't need the salt. But with the, Berwick has a lot of roads that are through roads. From Hubbard Road, which we take care of in the winter, to Little River, to Long Swamp, to Old Sanford, to Guinea and part of Blackberry Hill. Those are all commuter roads, and they get a lot of traffic, really. Even though they're local roads in the sense the town takes care of them, they're commuter roads. You know, it's people coming from 202, coming through to New Hampshire, and coming from North Berwick, Sanford, coming through over to, go to Kittery to the Navy Yard or wherever they work. So, I mean, what's driven it, in my mind, is the drivers. I mean, it's what I felt has been demanded. Could I personally live with a much less? Yeah, I could. Once I had teenage drivers, I felt differently because they're running off the roads all the time. But
When you get old, you can too. You stay home.
I hear what you're saying, and I mean, I don't like having to exert a huge effort and spend a lot of money, the taxpayers' money, for something that would melt off on its own anyways, if you just could wait a while. But I don't know a better way to do it, Joe. Believe me, I hear what you're saying. We've for years now, you and I have had this discussion.
There's one thing that you haven't considered
Yeah.
though, John, and I've seen this happen over the years. Vehicles driving over roads that have sand on them, generally the sand is not fine sand because you don't have the aggregate to really create a good traction base. So there is some stones in there. Those stones tend to pit the vehicles in the front in particular, and before you know it, you've got cracks in the paint that rust out very quickly. With the salt, it doesn't have that damage effect because it's not breaking into the paint as
No, but
such.
but I just had a friend that her car, her whole underneath it was all rusted out. When she went to have it fixed, it was gonna cost so much that she traded.
I'm not-
Because- And they
I'm
told
not
her
arguing
it was
that.
completely from salt that did it.
What I'm saying is that there is another side to that story in the sense if you add an aggregate, that it does damage the paint structure of the vehicle.
Sometimes it's rock comes
Damages
back
your
and-
windshields
I was gonna
too.
say, they come back and hit your windshield sometimes too.
So I mean, there's, where is the balance? I'm not sure, but I will say one thing,
But the stone
that I
dust-
was quite impressed with the condition of the roads in what few storms we've had this year. They've done a pretty damn good job of keeping them clean and keeping them passable in a safe manner. So
But now,
I-
the stone dust, how expensive is that? Because, what is it, North Berwick swears by it.
Well, what it is it's the stone dust is a little bit of a misnomer, because I did follow up with Pike. It's really, it's a manufactured sand, is really what it is.
I mean by manufactured sand, what do they make it of?
Stone.
It is made out of stone, but it's not really the dust, it's more I think it was almost a washed product they described to me.
Coarser is what it is.
Yeah, it's coarser, so
Well,
that
yeah, I
it would
understand
actually
that, but I
work
mean,
as a-
but it's gonna be made out of rocks.
It is,
Blast it
Okay.
and crush it.
it is, yeah.
So it's
Now-
not really manufactured.
By
Well,
manufactured, I mean manufactured
Processed.
from the rock.
If you'd rather have
Processed,
that
crushed,
word,
processed.
it's processed there. My goodness.
When I think of manufactured, I think of me making something.
I understand. With regard to the liquid, adding the liquid, the liquid, I mean, Joe's absolutely right that the salt works much less well under 20 degrees. It's a matter of concentration, and you need a lot more concentration below 20 degrees to get it to work. That's when adding the liquid to it really shines. The last storm, the Saturday storm, we would have been better off with liquid, because it was a cold storm. And, I'm getting a little more firsthand experience with liquid now. I never embraced it too much because most of our storms seemed like they were warmer storms, so it was hard for me to see the economic benefit of the liquid. But if we're gonna keep getting cold storms, we need to start using the liquid. We need to go back to using the liquid with the.
Well, The state still is, it's like they use it on the turnpike, they must still stand by that, the liquid,
They do, and all their formulas are set up with treated salt.
yeah.
They're all set up with
So
treated
I
salt.
remember the gentleman came up and explained the whole, I think I got a book somewhere, it's not if I haven't thrown it out, explaining all that stuff.
Getting back to roads, John, something that would save some of our roads, especially Sullivan Street, as you come down Pine Hill, if, two things, one is the intersection of the cross street,
Knox Lane?
Knox Lane was improved, because that's not a good intersection. And coming out, not quite so bad. Going in from Pine Hill is serious. I mean, you're in the other lane.
The radius,
And
yeah.
not much you can do about it. That, to me, should be corrected. But equally as important, it would appear to me that we could have an awful lot of traffic not coming down the rest of Pine Hill, and if that road was completely paved. And I know there's some issues, fundamental issues about property ownership and that sort of thing, town ownership of the other end that is dirt. And that's about the same condition as the Blackberry Hill, the Sanford Road end of it. But I just, I think that should be considered at least, and come up with a figure of what it would cost, and at least get the ball started. I'm not saying do it this year, don't get me wrong, but I think, we need to be progressive. And
What dirt road are you talking about?
It's talking the end of Knox Lane, which is now Greater Lane off of
Yeah,
Hubbard Road.
I know, that's what I thought it was, but I was just surprised. You want to go through to Hubbard Road?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there's a thought.
Well, we have a whole lot of population beyond my place that comes down Pine Hill. Some people want to go toward Rochester, so if they come down and go down to Knox Lane, they only go down Hubbard Road a short distance, and then they can turn and go up Salmon Falls Road. And that would certainly be a shortcut. Two things could happen. One, it would save the traffic coming around Town Hall, for one thing. And it would also save the wear and tear on that road that we're having now, Does it need to be built heavier, only because maybe heavy trucks would use it? Conceivable, but, I just think quite a lot of that was paved when the water line was extended there. It would appear to me it would be good if we could at least get a figure and see what that would cost to improve that road the rest of the way.
I think the issue you have with that section of Greater Lane and stuff is that we'd have to determine actual ownership.
Well, there's a right-of-way
Well,
through
when-
there, as I understood it. Remember one night, there was a big controversy on it?
Correct, there was a lot of discussion as to what we were
And
gonna
Mr.
do.
Sapason owned a lot of land, and he said there was a right-of-way through his land. And there's a
Correct.
railroad bed in there somewheres.
Yes, and I think the selectmen took action that we considered it a right of
Public
way.
way,
Public easement or
for the
public
use of
easement.
those lots that depended
Correct.
on it.
And that was all we described as ownership. So certainly we can get a price, and I know some of the people that own property adjacent to that are clearly frustrated with the ability of some to go through there, and then they have to maintain it because they own a section of that.
Yeah,
So they've been concerned about that as well, so-
That's what that whole thing was about to
If
begin
we can
with.
look at it, we will, and we'll come up with a price. And
Well, I just think it's something, let's face it, the town is growing, and it's grown for a number of years, and I think we need the infrastructure that's appropriate for the growth of the town. And I see that as being a potentially advantageous project, Not that there aren't others, because there are others, believe me, I know that, but,
All right, if we,
Can I?
Rob?
Well, I was just gonna say, back some years ago, everybody on that road, except one person, was very willing to deed 25 feet of their lots. And they were gonna push the road through back then, but this one person, and I think the existing road now goes by their place.
Yes, we were able to negotiate and get that
So
taken
everybody
care
else
of
would probably,
as Mr. Chandler was expanding that section of road and putting in his subdivision just beyond that. So there has been some accommodations that have been made by all the parties involved to accomplish that, so.
well, that's what I think, the people would probably again deed it to get a town road put in.
There's a possibility.
They were all, probably a few of the people are different, but
Well, I just feel it's been dropped, and anything hasn't been done in quite some time. I think it's time to take a look at it and see what is needed to make that work. To me, that would be a kind of a valuable asset.
Do we have any more issues as far as, that we want to discuss as far as the roads go? Good?
are you aware of that little break in the road in front of, well, you wouldn't know Plus. The turn in where the buses used to go, just past there on the left-hand side going up, there's been a break in the pavement right near the curbing. And a guy came into our meeting last week and he said there was rusty water bubbling out of there, so wouldn't that indicate a pipe rather than people thought it was a spring? It was just a little ways below the house I used to own. And up to several years ago,
The back
it
road
was never
above.
there.
Okay.
So I don't think it was a spring.
Well, he spoke to the town manager, Jeff Podge just spoke to the town manager about it.
Yep.
What happens
He
there
had
is,
called me about that.
there's a couple, we've actually opened that road a couple of times for the issue, and it's not potable water, it's not part of the public water, it's the water that breaks out of that hill, believe it or not. And there's some old lines and stuff in there that the water seems to follow.
Is it old septic tanks? It's something to make it look at
I
rusty?
think it's an old water line. I think there was, when the new water line was put in, the old water line was there, and it follows it, and maybe that's where it picks up the rust, or maybe it's normal iron out of the, groundwater. And then it just breaks out. We put I think 2 different spots now, we put weepers over, and then it just finds another spot to start breaking out.
But it didn't used to be that way. There was never a break there till several years ago.
I'm not sure I understand exactly where the pavement break is.
It
You know
just
when
comes
tur-
up to the
It's
pavement.
very
John.
near the curbing.
Okay, you're talking about water, about,
Right,
Yeah.
coming right through the pavement.
right, through a crack in the, crack, right, okay, yeah.
Even the spring under there or something.
I think
Well,
there's
that's what they thought to
just
begin
multiple
with. But wouldn't it have
springs of
broken
groundwater
through?
in the whole hill that just keep finding the ways, the easiest spots for them to break to the surface. Seems to be what we're finding when we dig in there.
Because there's a sewer a little ways down from there, or a little ways up, I forgot.
Yeah, I don't
Catch
think it's,
basin.
it's not, I don't think it's sewage, or I don't think it's potable water, because we tested it for, presence of chlorine and so forth.
Oh,
Find
If it was sewer, it'd probably smell in the summer.
Right, I think it's just groundwater.
Yeah.
But that could easily be taken care of by going to the manhole, the catch basin, and running backwards with some drain pipe
Exactly.
and stone, and it would solve the problem. What has happened, I think people are concerned about the fact that it does build ice, especially when we have these cold days. And the water surfaces, and pretty soon it's running down the side of the road.
Yeah, we'll make sure we get to that first thing this spring.
Do you have anything else as far as roads go? I have one thing starting off here with the rest of the budget. Personnel. How are we looking for personnel? I know that we have some people out on medical and whatnot. Without getting into personal situations, how are we set as far as personnel goes?
It's still an open issue in terms of the medical leave.
That won't be determined until the end of the month anyway.
We should be finding out very soon
Yeah.
whether that employee is gonna be able to be returned to duty. At that point, once that decision's been made, then we'll have to decide what our next course of action is. But if you're getting to the point where what we should be doing in terms of our staff, I think John can weigh in on this too. I think we need the staff that we presently have. As I told you, I think last time we met, that we're beginning to do some modifications with our staff to accommodate where we need them the most, and trying to be very flexible with our staff. But to eliminate a full-time position as a result of somebody going out and then leaving us because of medical conditions and then making that part-time, I don't think we're ready to recommend to you that we do that or not do that. We just haven't gone across that board yet.
So the budget that you're giving us right now, because I noticed that the full-time wages pretty much stayed, actually down just a little bit from the actuals. But the part-time wages for 2011 actual was like 34,000, and you're still only asking for 16.
Correct. You gotta remember, even with the full-timer that was out on medical leave, there was still work that had to be done. And so we compensated that with some
way.
part-time folks there, and did that. So that's why you see a little bit of influx there.
Yeah, and some of that was due to the extreme winter last year, because five of the plow routes are covered by part-time people, so if it's an extreme winter. So we just try to budget for a normal winter, whatever that is.
John, how, are the guys working 4 10-hour days now, or are they on
No, they do
Five
in the winter.
eighths during the winter.
5 days, okay, because I was thinking of that on Friday when I was out there plowing. If they was on overtime or not. You know, that was just rude.
The,
So someone told me last week that anyone who has a CDL license has a stroke, they lose that license. Can you find out if that's true?
They don't lose a license, they have to have a physical to be able to pass it to keep it.
We'll find out all that stuff
Right,
once his doctor determines whether or not he can come back to service. Then we'll
Believe
be
me,
able
I
to
would.
Well, I
provide
hadn't
that.
heard it
went through-
before.
I went through that CDL license bit with my husband, and he couldn't pass a physical, so he, naturally, you know, he was very upset because he'd had one all his life and he should have it, but he wasn't,
John, one of the economic
he
features
never will be
of
driving.
hiring part-time help is the fact that we're not involved with the peripheral expense of the part-time help. Economically, that makes sense. I guess the biggest issue is, in my mind, is the part-time help doing an adequate job as a full-time person would?
That's an excellent question, and I think Berwick has for years enjoyed very good part-time
Part-time.
help. Some of the part-time help has been faithful for many
Oh,
years,
yeah.
30 plus in some cases. I don't know how long they're gonna want to continue that, but as long as they do, it
Well,
works for them, works for the town, so.
I'm not talking about your winter part-time, I'm talking about year-round part-time. Part-time in the sense of mowing lawns, or, you know, cleaning up the edges of roads, putting up stop signs, so that maintenance kind of position. If you get the right people, you'll be able to accomplish basically the same amount of work. Part-time, I'm not sure the number of hours that they can work, based on contract, what have you, but, you know, if you had a resource of part-time folks that could be called in as needed, pretty much, seems to me that could accomplish a considerable savings to the town in the overall budget.
And it really is.
Yeah.
It really is now. I mean, you're correct.
But now, years ago, we had, actually, she was high school and she was a college student, who did all the lawns in the summer. She was, and I'm sure she was part-time. I mean, that's better than now we're putting a full-time guy out there mowing lawns, and that's what, about $40 an hour when we start and figure out all his benefits and everything. So wouldn't that save a lot of money to be putting maybe there's some kids out there that need that summer work to go to school.
We pulled it out of the budget last year with the budget cuts. So it didn't leave us with, with a lot of options. But obviously it is less per hour,
A lot less per
a lot
hour.
less per hour to have a
I
part-time
guess
person.
my thought
It's not
is-
in this budget either, by the way. It's not here.
Well, you mean you
Yeah, I
couldn't
think
find,
the-
you can't, you're paying a full-time guy to mow the lawn, so you can't take
But
that
I-
money and pay a part-time person?
Well, the full-time person's still gonna get paid, whether he's
I-
mowing the
I- I
lawns or doing
understand
something
that,
else.
but
I
he'll
guess
be-
the-
but he'll be
I
working.
guess what you're really alluding to, I think, Selectman Crichton and you, Selectman Murphy, is whether or not we should be making a conscious effort of contracting out some of these types of services that we presently have.
No, no, that's not a contract.
Okay, well, I'm hearing the use of more part-timers. We're getting to a point, and John and I have had this discussion before, whether or not, when we begin to retire equipment, whether or not we should begin to look at putting routes out to contract in order to get a contractor to do it. And the same thing could be done with parks maintenance, and to see what kind of cost would be associated with that as
Now,
well.
the town of Waterboro, they do all their snow plowing by contract. They divide the town up, and they put it out to bid. And knowing an old selectman up there was selectman for years, and also a legislator, and he told me that's worked very well up there.
A lot of communities do that, Selectman
Yeah,
Murphy.
that's
A
not
lot
an
of them do.
uncommon method.
You end up losing a little bit of control, but you
Well,
still
why
have
would you
the.
lose control? If you put it out to bid, you've still got to have somebody
Well,
overseer.
I have certainly been on the end where we've had contractors that have worked for municipalities that I've worked in. And what I mean by losing control is that these folks, they give you a package of what kind of equipment they have. If they begin to have breakdowns, they're still contractually obligated to take care of that route.
Right.
But if they don't have the equipment to do it, then there's a delay in getting that road
But then the
plowed until they get their their trucks back online.
And it should be in the contract that the town has a right to hire somebody else to do it, and they pay for it.
I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying that when you begin to go down that road, you begin to lose a little bit of that service that we're now accustomed to. And that would be something that you would have to understand and be a little give and take there.
Well, I guess my thought, and maybe I'm all wet, but my feeling is, well, you've got some roads that need major repair or rebuilding, and you're gonna use people to run the vehicles and do whatever. Wouldn't it be more economical to have them do that kind of work and put some of the peripheral things like mowing the lawns or setting up stop signs or whatever, the menial, more menial task to part-time help? Maybe you'd have to have an experienced man, go with them, but you also have a foreman there yourself. Keith could go out and do some of that. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities here.
But that was eliminated from last year's budget. I mean, that whole aspect of,
Using a part-timer to do that work, yes.
right.
Yeah.
and
Why was that eliminated?
for
It
just
couldn't have been, that costly. It's much cheaper than,
We certainly can provide you the documentation as to how much it cost us in the past. We don't have it
I mean,
tonight.
the only thing you have to pay is workers' comp,
You have to pay the salary.
well, the salary, but I
yeah,
meant for
and,
insurances, all you pay is
The
workers'
person
comp.
there, and we have to maintain the equipment, similar to what we do now. But it was eliminated as a cost-saving measure from last year, and as I understand it, that's not in the budget now.
Do you wanna, would you like to start?
But
going
nothing
down
is
through-
I
cast
have a
in
hard
stone here.
time
That's what
finding
we're
that
doing.
cost saving.
We're trying to develop a budget that's gonna be
No.
effective for the community. I mean, that's the whole point.
Right.
But just to let you know, right now, the budget that's presented to you is up $7,270 from last year, 1.2%.
That's too much.
So,
Agree.
And so you've got some wiggle room. If you prefer us to present to you another alternative of doing work and a cost associated with that, we certainly will do that.
Do you wanna go down through and hit some key points that you have here?
Sure. Basically, we kept everything the same as last year with the exception of what was contractually obligated to increase, which were wages and the sewer bill. Other than that, we kept it exactly the same. I mean, we can certainly make minor adjustments in terms of how personnel is deployed and that sort of thing based on our discussions, which makes a lot of sense.
Where is the sewer bill on here?
It is.
Oh, I see it, water, sewer.
Water,
Oh, you
sewer.
haven't got it broke down.
Yeah.
What is your sewer bill?
Water is sewer is 1,900.
Well, no, it's water / sewer.
Yeah, the breakdown would be 1,900 for, I gotta look at two sheets at the same time here, just bear with me. So water sewer is 1,900, and sewer is, you know, I can't make out my own hieroglyphics here.
According to his backup sheet, it looks like the sewer rates for the town garage tripled, resulting in an increase of $900. So the rate went up $900.
I know, but I'd like to know exactly what it is.
You'd like to know
we can
what it is,
provide
and I
that to you.
Yeah,
apologize.
and I'd like to know
I
what the,
should have
what,
had that for
what the
you.
water is, and if someone says, I mean,
Well,
I
the
can-
water is the quarterly payment, and we had an adjustment in the sewer.
And I understand.
And you understand,
I understand what water is. I paid my water bill yesterday, two
Yeah.
of them.
I'm not disputing that with you.
Well,
I'm just saying that the only change we had here was that we were reclassified as part of the district's review of their customers. We were reclassified, and as a result of that, we had to increase our rates. So we'll provide that documentation to you, so you know what it was before
that's what
and
I'd
what
like.
it is now.
No, what it is now. I'd like to know what the increase is.
Oop, Jay's
Well,
here. You
the-
may ask Jay, he may know right off the top of his head.
Oh,
Guys,
I didn't see
we
Jay.
Change the 3 units, it should be a household times 3, would be
112 times 3?
1350 annually.
No, that's 4 quarters, so it'd be times 4, wouldn't it?
No, 450 per year, 11250 per quarter is a household unit. And
Yeah.
the public works garage
Yeah,
was
it's
the same thing as
450
a
times
regular service station.
$448 and change.
$1,700 a year at $450 a quarter.
My calculator's broke.
I got
Oh,
$1,800 at
18
$450
no,
a
oh, no,
quarter.
wait,
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I thought it was a 24.
Times 3 units?
1,800.
Times 3 units.
No, it'd be a
1650.
quarter, there's 4 quarters.
Yeah.
It's
it's
But they
450 a
tripled
year
the
times
112.
3.
3, it's
They
1350.
didn't triple the 112.
1350.
Yes, they did. They put them as a triple user up there.
1350.
Claimed they were a,
Oh, you, oh,
Service
oh, the
station.
quarter you tripled?
No, 450 a year times 3.
No.
Yeah.
We'll
Oh,
get the
it's
information for you.
112 for single,
We'll
Yeah.
provide it to you.
and that's 4 times. 4 times 2 is 8.
and now, did.
That's
uh,
448.
Jay, did you multiply the 112.50 by
Okay.
3 for a quarter?
That's a quarter charge, the annual charge per unit is $450. We assess the town garage as 3 units, which is it's the assessment for a service station, basically, that we
Yeah.
charge the rest of the garages in town.
So it's 1,800 a year.
So it'd
No,
be 1350
1350 a year.
times 3. It's 450 times 3.
It's
The
your 112 times
112.50
4,
times
then times 3.
I'm a math major, Eleanor.
Well, you know, I always been pretty good in math too, especially when it comes to dollars and pennies. But,
Thanks, Jay.
but
Thanks, Jay.
so you didn't multiply the 112.50 by 3
No.
By 4.
for
Well,
each
you can
quarter?
do that by the quarter, or you can do it by the year, or whatever
Yeah, it was
you want.
$450 a
It comes out
year.
to the same thing in the end.
Okay,
We're talking annual charge, right? Because he's looking at a
Yeah.
budget, so.
yeah. That's right, that's right, 3 instead of 4, 1,300. So the sewer is 1,300. So the water must be 600.
Water's the rest.
Anything else that really jumps out?
We do have streetlight maintenance now. I didn't really add anything for that, but the two latest subdivisions that we took on, Colonial Green and Penny Pond, have metered lights versus CMP lights. It is more cost-effective to do it that way. But with the CMP lights, it just shows up as part of the street lights, and CMP maintains them. So we just have maintenance that should not be, not expected to be huge costs associated with those.
Okay, on travel and training, you got $798.25 for 2011, and you're asking for $2,600 for this year. And actually, you've only spent $7. So why would you ask for that much more?
It could be that some charges haven't been charged yet. I don't think we've ever spent the $2,600, to be honest with you, but it's there if training is, some special training
What
comes up.
kind of training were you thinking of?
It's usually through the local road center, and it's just, all training related to the work.
Training to do what, to get a CDL license?
No,
I was
just-
gonna say, because that should be on their own.
Right, I mean, they provide us with winter maintenance training, and they provide, how to do drainage and latest thinking on all public works issues and that sort of thing.
And how often
It's
do you
usually
hold
pretty minimal.
I was gonna say, how often do you hold these training sessions?
It's whenever, we usually go through the local road center, which is part of DOT.
And where do you have to go for that? York?
Wherever they happen to have it, it wouldn't be any further than Portland.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, I mean, where in 2011, you asked for just under 800, and now you're asking for 2,600. To me, that's quite an increase.
Well, that is quite an increase. It should have been the same.
It is.
It is the same.
That was the actual,
You
the
asked-
800.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You only spent $800, so why would you be asking for 2,600 for 12 and 13? And you've only spent 700 for 12 so far.
We can probably safely reduce it,
Well, I think we ought to.
We haven't been using it.
The other piece of that, and he's very modest, he doesn't talk about it, but there is some training that he has to take, is required to keep his engineering
Right.
license.
And that's our responsibility?
Yes, it is.
Why is that our
Well,
responsibility?
we split it with South Berwick as per our contract. Now, I'm not sure it's all in here and what, because I haven't talked to John about it, but it's part of this package as well.
Well, I'd like to know what part it is, how much it's costing us.
Sure. Do you want to see his contract?
Well, yeah, I'd like to have a copy of it.
Okay, well, I'll
It's
get you a copy.
usually fairly minimal. Believe me, I don't abuse that sort of stuff. I never have and I never will.
Well, it's coming from, well, anyway, I won't. I think different than other people.
Now, the pension,
Any education I got, I paid damn dearly for myself. No one paid for me, believe me.
I understand.
the pension, it was basically zero across the board, and now we're up to 4,537. Is that just a typo? We didn't pay any pensions out before?
No, I think you have to go back and look at your sheet that provides your salary analysis. And you'll see it's Maine State Retirement for
Yeah,
for our folks.
yeah,
It totals up to $4,537. Includes all of our full-time employees.
But I'm just saying, we didn't
Right,
budget
we're now beginning to break that out so you can actually see those costs.
And also, the same thing for pensions is ICMA.
Correct,
There's only one person on that. Oh, no, there's two on it.
correct.
So they're getting two pensions, am I right? Yes.
Right, it depends on the contractual obligations and what we're obligated to pay to each one.
John, are you under, you're not under a union, are you?
No.
Oh, okay. I don't think so. So it just shows it's just a simple contract between the board and you. Okay, thank you.
Now, I know that what was it? In previous years, you were able to get on a special deal as far as buying the salt. You went into somebody else or something like that. Are you still able to do that, or?
We are. We did it a little bit differently this year. We went through two bids. We went through the Greater Portland Council of Government bid, and then for the first time, Town of York used to also do a bid, include us in that, but this year that got kind of expanded, and Southern Maine Regional picked it up and did their own bid. And we are actually purchasing this year under the Southern Maine Regional bid because it
Get a lot
came in
better.
better. It came in better than the COG bid.
Volume-wise.
Right.
Now, would we have to pay them directly, or can we buy that under that bid price? Do we just pay?
We pay the vendor directly, and Southern Maine does not charge us any percentage.
Oh,
COG charged us 2%, I believe, or
Yes,
1.5%,
they did.
2%, because we're not a member, a direct member of GP COG. So it's kind of one both ways on that one.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna get our own cog, so that's gonna be part of the caveat here. Southern Maine, York County will have its own cog here soon. I believe that's been passed.
As far as equipment goes, are we looking at anything as far as the loader? Is it still gonna hold out?
Yeah, it should. The 20-year-old truck, we should look at replacing.
Oh, okay, you've got equipment purchase here, shouldn't that come under CIP? I mean, you spent under 600, and yet you're asking for, and you spent $129.95 so far this year. You're asking for $2,025.
It would be small equipment such as chainsaws, push mowers, and that sort of thing. So if we lose a chainsaw, we replace it. If we lose a push mower, we replace it. That sort of thing.
And equipment maintenance is $47,900. Is that reasonable?
Might be low, but it's also unpredictable. You know, this large equipment can be, one item can be very expensive, but it seems to have been a decent average, you know, for the last few years.
Yeah, you can, I'm sure you can see that we spent over $75,000 last year in equipment maintenance.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, 75.
We
That's what I was
did
wondering.
redo the backhoe, though. The backhoe has been all repinned and everything, and
Now, the backhoe, is it still the Caterpillar?
The
No,
backhoe's
you
a
must
John,
have, you must have got a new one since 30 years ago.
it's a John Deere, and the,
5 years ago.
and the loader is a Caterpillar.
How old is the Caterpillar? Is that old?
I think
You may have been around when that got purchased.
the loader is,
still feeding the horses.
It's over 20.
a 1999.
Oh, no, that's what, no, because we bought one in the late 70s. After, one of our employees got killed on one. Remember Bruce Lord when he was,
And we had that all repinned, the loader, right? Didn't we break that apart?
The center pin redone.
Center
That
pin
was
done.
done last year too, right?
Right.
And I know that the backhoe.
Right, we had a lot of
needed
work to
some
do to that,
extensive
yeah.
work last year. So all that should be looking fairly decent. Is that getting a lot of use as far as, I know you use it down at the transfer station?
Most of its use is there.
Yeah.
At least most of its time is spent there, and of course, that's a vital part of the program there.
Yeah.
And then it's, for some ditching and so forth, but typically we pull in an excavator because it's just so much faster if it's anything, got any depth to it, or if it's extended, if it's a shallow culvert, you can pop it out pretty quickly with the backhoe.
So
Did
we,
you all get this as part of your package, the list of equipment?
no, we didn't get that.
No.
I'd like to have it though.
Yes, they did. It's in your packet somewhere.
Is it?
Yeah, if it's in
What
mine,
does
it's
it
in
say
yours.
on the top?
Public
It says Public Works Equipment CIP.
No, I haven't got it. There's nothing, all we got is all right here, just these 2-3 pages you gave us.
You should have got backup information. You got the wages, the public wages piece.
Oh, I got
You
that
got
in another notebook,
Public
but
Work,
I didn't
Public Works
notice that.
proposed 2013 budget
But
and
in
all the
reading it, I don't
background.
remember the equipment.
And the final page was the equipment. if you don't have this, I will go get a copy of it right now, so you can have it as part of your package.
I need it.
I don't
I need
recall
it
seeing
too.
it in
If
mine,
I have,
but
I
it may
got
be
it
here and
home.
I missed it.
All right, before you leave tonight, make sure I'll get this copy for you.
It just shows all the equipment, its age, year
It's
it
a
was
good idea
bought.
to know that, though,
And-
especially when we're doing the budget.
Right, and a projected year, projected life. All the truck, we've been pushing the truck, years ago,
It's not
we
it.
replaced
I thought it
trucks
was.
at 12 years. But then it kinda went to 14 and 15, now it seems to be 20,
As long as they kept running.
right?
We got one old.
Yeah, we got 20 going on 21, another 16, the Wheeler's
Well, you
16.
wait a couple more years, it'll be an antique, you probably get a lot of money for it.
Right.
How is it, I mean, is it a real active, I mean,
Well, if you remember the 1996 truck, the L9000, we had to, we patched the block. Remember,
Yeah,
we had
right,
a
yeah.
piece on that broke through. So that truck, and that has a new body. I think a couple of years back, we put a body from Tenco on that, $36,000 body, so.
Now,
and then
are these trucks gas or diesel?
These are diesel.
They're all diesel?
Yeah, other than the pickup truck,
Oh, yeah.
I do.
yeah.
pickup trucks.
Could say,
I knew you had it.
because your diesel engines last forever. I mean, you know, you can have them, believe me, I've paid enough bills with diesel engines. You can have them redone.
There are 5 major plow routes, so the 5 large trucks. It's really a neat system, and it hasn't changed since I've been here, but it's like the garage is a hub, and then there's the spokes that come off from it around town. And what's nice is if a truck goes down, they can be slid. They can just slide both ways, and it really does, it's a nice system that the town
You
worked
mean
out.
it
over.
slides?
Well, in other words, if you've got your spokes coming out, say this truck breaks down, these two can kind of slide over
Okay, I
to the
understand.
Pick up
root.
the slack.
It takes
Yeah,
a little
pick up the
longer,
slack.
but
Yeah.
it gets done.
Yeah,
Without
okay.
having to deadhead, from one end of town
The
all the
other-
way to
yeah,
the other.
Yeah. So it's a plan that was laid out.
Right,
Probably
and it
follow
was
up
really
here.
well thought out, I think.
now I know you mentioned the, moving around of some of the personnel and stuff like that. Are we truly utilizing the mechanic?
Obviously, with a small crew, everybody needs to be willing and able to do everything.
Yeah,
And that's been our goal, it continues to be our goal. The maintenance facility, Matt Gray left the maintenance facility over on Route 4, but Scotty Maltese stayed. He's a very good mechanic. He's fast and he's thorough and he's a good he can diagnose equipment. He diagnosed a problem we'd had with the holder that had been a nagging problem that the vendor failed to diagnose, which the alternator wasn't exciting. It was that simple, and rewired it and got it back up and going for us. I think that still has a lot of potential, and I think that facility can service well 2 towns.
Is that the one down on Route 4?
Correct.
Is that the one that the South Berwick is thinking about something? Somebody said it was thinking about closing or something?
There's no, at least from my perspective, there's no plan to close
Okay, I mean, it was just kind of
that.
gossip that I heard, that when that mechanic left, that it was in serious trouble.
Scott's a full-time employee there now. We don't intend to bring on a second mechanic, but perhaps the facility will do less in terms of marketing to other towns and try to focus on maybe these 2 towns, South Berwick
any
and Berwick.
thoughts on sharing that, mechanic's position, similar to like we're doing with you?
There is, at least in a sense, and Keith and Town Manager Ellsworth from South Berwick are really trying to hone that and refine it and get it to reasonable rates and get it so that it works for both towns.
Now, this Scott works for Town of South Berwick.
That's correct,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, that
And his
is-
last name is what?
Maltese, Maltese. I think
Yeah.
I spelled it correct.
Well,
And what's basically, Keith, you might know, is basically the mechanic's annual salary.
Where, our mechanic right now? It's in your sheets.
Let's see, right?
Is $39,728.
Yeah, but his total is 59,000.
Well, yeah, but he asked me what his salary was.
Yeah.
So I provided
Well,
that.
I don't know,
Total
I look
compensation.
at total for salary,
total-
that's coming out of my pocket.
The total benefit package is what Selectman Murphy said, at $59,021.
So you're looking at, if we did share them, the possibility of being a 30,000 decrease.
Yeah, but those discussions have not gone anywhere. Right now, what we're doing is we've modified his schedule. He's now part of the active crew. He's got a plow route that he plows. He's also a fabricator for us, so he does our mental fabrication when we need it. So I think there is a change in how we're gonna assign duties to him at this point. And we have still not exhausted our discussions the other way, but right now, there's a need for him to be more involved in our crew and the work that needs to be done there, as opposed to being in the garage on a daily basis. So, I know John and Robert have modified the schedule to be accommodating for our needs.
Now, is he a trained mechanic?
Yes.
He's a forester, I thought.
That's what his degree is.
He was hired as a mechanic, when we hired him, a mechanic equipment operator. That's how he was hired.
Well, that doesn't answer the question, but that's all right.
What would you like to know? Whether he has,
No,
whether he has,
I said, what training did he have to be a mechanic?
well, I can make available his resume if you'd like to look at it.
Probably his father-in-law. Probably his father-in-law.
But anyways, our staff, it's an always ongoing review of where we need the help.
I
We're very
understand.
limited on the amount of full-time employees we have now, so we have to utilize them everywhere we need them.
I understand that, but, there's mechanics and there's mechanics, and I'm sure you know that.
I think, one of the things we try to do is assign the task in a way that plays to the people's skills. And everybody has strengths and weaknesses.
That's right.
And we do our best to play to the strengths.
So what do we want to do with this, the budget? Do we want,
I don't think we're ready to pass it.
no.
Are there any proposed changes you would like to make tonight?
Yeah, I'd like to see that 2,600 cut down. I don't think we need that much. Now, clothing, there's an increase this year of almost 800 with that. How much, do they get a certain amount each year for clothing?
No, we rent their clothing. Their clothing comes from
General Linen?
UniFirst Corporation, UniFirst.
Oh, okay. And that's,
And there's so much a week that we have so many pieces of equipment that are.
and they've gone up $800 this year on their
I think
contract?
there's something else that's in that package. Let me look at your backup
You've
information.
got 4334?
Yeah.
4334.
Because I'm showing that as the same as last year, but I don't know.
Well,
if I'm
no,
working
I've
off
got,
the same sheet.
last year, 3543.
That's the actual.
That's the actual. The budget
That's the
was,
actual.
the budget
Okay.
was 4334.
Yeah, that's right, that is the actual. Okay, you didn't go up on it.
We have the uniforms and boots for the full-time employees, coveralls, rain gear, and shop rags come out of that clothing allowance.
Boots,
Yes.
Bob, do you have anything?
No, I've read the budget over. I think we gotta take a strong look at it, but I'm not prepared to make any
recommendations?
judgments at this point.
Marshall? Do you have any ideas, any areas that,
Not really.
did you have any more, Eleanor, that?
well, I don't know, let me look at my notes here. I've been working on this quite a bit. So your increase this year is $7,270, am I correct?
That's correct. That's how much that has been adjusted.
Well, I'd like to see it down below that. That's wages and everything in there?
That's the entire package,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
All total.
And how much is that, is the increase in there for the non-union people?
No,
Okay.
Who's non-union up there?
it would be
Oh,
John.
just John.
John. Yeah, but I just wanted to know if it was all in there, because he said it was total package. He and I don't,
You haven't
the
addressed,
meaning for total is the
you
difference.
haven't addressed non-union salary personnel yet.
Yeah, but no, I know, but you said total package. The word total to me means everything. I'm sure it doesn't to you.
Well, once you make your decisions on what you want to do with your non-union employees, then we'll adjust all those budgets accordingly.
Okay.
Well, I don't think we can do anything with that at this stage anyway,
No, I
until
don't
we.
either, but he said
we
total,
have
so
more.
I wanted to know if it was, everything was in there.
Oh,
I mean, I'd like to know what the budget is I'm looking at. And how many hours a day do we work? They work 8 hours a day?
Yeah,
Yes.
they work a
They
40-hour
start
week.
working at what time?
7 to 3:30.
Okay, that's a question I had. It isn't right now, it's almost daylight, but for a month or more, 6 weeks, it's been dark at 7. What do they do in the dark? Why
Well,
wouldn't
I
they
mean-
change their hours to like 8 to 4:30 in the winter?
To be honest with you, I'd like to have them in earlier, because
What do they do
if
up
you gotta
there?
respond to slippery roads, 7 o'clock's way too late.
I'm not talking about slippery roads, I'm talking about days that there isn't any storms.
Right, I mean, it's getting, I think it's getting reasonably light, by then.
It is now, but it the been, believe me. The school picks kids up right across the street from me, and I see those kids out there at 7:05, standing in the dark, and these are 5th and 6th graders. The high school kids go at 6:30, and I'm thinking, 5th graders are only what, 10, 11 years old? I just think that's kind of young to be standing over there waiting for a school bus in the dark, and it is dark. I'm up at that time in the morning,
Right,
believe
right,
me.
right. I
Definitely
mean,
has
let's say we're adding gravel to a gravel road, They leave, they drive to pipe, they get the gravel, somebody's driving the loader to a road. I mean, usually there's a little bit of time just to kind of, get there and get going and so forth, so.
Well, I'll leave that for a later day.
I'd love it if we were in earlier,
Well,
but guys can usually respond pretty fast to conditions, so.
What time do they come in the summer when they're working 4 days?
That's 6 to,
So they come in earlier then?
but it's
Right.
daylight at 6 o'clock in the summer.
6 to 4:30.
Anything else on the budget?
Not tonight, probably will be later when I get more thought.
Well, if there's any, as you review the budget, if there are any specific questions that we can have prepared and answered for you, please provide them to us when they come up, so we can get those answers for you and get them to you.
I will.
And before you leave tonight, if you don't have this, I know Selectman Crichton found his,
I'll put it-
so he has his in his
I
packet.
think mine is in my other.
Okay.
Which
book at
one's
home.
that?
That's just the Public Works Equipment CIP account.
Oh, yeah, I
If
don't
you
think
don't
I
have
have
it,
it either.
I will make copies and make sure you get them.
I had just one other question as far as, I know lots of times, do you plan on making any equipment purchases this year as out of the CIP?
I think that 20-year-old truck we'll need to take a hard look at.
How many miles it got on it? I think that probably,
Well,
How many
it's
times
more,
has-
it's probably, really with these, it's more the age. It's more the age than the mileage. Because they're just in such severe conditions, and it becomes a point where it's just hard to
Well,
get
it's not
parts
like
and
over
that
the
sort of
road. I
thing.
mean, it's not like getting in and driving the truck to the other side of Augusta every day and back.
Right, we
something
really
like
don't,
that.
the mileage stays relatively low
well,
on
and
this.
what is the problems with it then?
Cold starts.
Probably the salt.
It's just, it's just the age, it's
Oh.
just,
We may have to exercise some additional discussion on that then, because right now, there's $97,858 in the CIP account for trucks and equipment, so,
What does a new truck cost?
you're probably looking at 150,
probably
maybe?
135 to 140,
Yeah.
good, depending on how it's set up, yeah.
Six-wheel dump truck, if we're gonna replace it. So we need to give that some some thought, because if it is, we'll have to add that
How
to the
much
budget.
goes into the CIP every year?
It depends on what you approve. Right now, in this particular budget that's been provided to you, there's 0 requests for money into the CIP.
And didn't we do 0 last year also?
Um,
Yeah, I thought we did. Maybe
I'm
here
trying
and
to-
there we
I'm trying to
allowed.
look here. I don't know if we did any or not. It doesn't appear by this appropriation sheet I have that we had any,
Things that we cut.
Yeah.
we left the 250 in for road repair, but I believe we cut that budget, and there was nothing there. So if that's something you want us to
Did we buy a big piece of equipment this year?
No.
Well, okay, in the back here, it says proposed budget, 2011-12, 250,000 for public works.
Yeah, that was just your road maintenance.
That's road maintenance.
Okay, oh, okay.
So if there's a thought that you wish for us to really exercise that, we'll have to add
Yeah, the
probably another, you know,
The town hall, you put 9,000 in the police department, you put in 48,000 last year.
correct, and that was for cruiser purchases.
And that was it. And they purchased, they did purchase a cruiser.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else? Thank you very much, John.
You're welcome, thank you, guys.
You did well, under the gun.
Is that it for tonight?
I believe it is.
Okay.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So, oh, second.
Motion seconded. All those in favor?
Thank you.